I'd like to call to order the July 2026 meeting of the Knox County Board of Zoning Appeals. If you would call the roll.
Curtis Brown, Jonathan Repass,
Present.
Craig Blitz, Ashley Williams,
Present.
Cecil Anderson,
Present.
John Elliott,
Here.
Sherry Garrett,
Present.
Philip Graves,
Present.
Paul Huff.
Present.
Have 8 members present.
Very well. If you would now join me in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members of the Board of Zoning Appeals are volunteers from each commission district who do not receive compensation for their work on the board or training they attend. As a quasi-judicial body, we avoid ex parte communication and conduct our business in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. My name is Paul Huff. I'm the chairman. To my immediate right is Mr. Mike Moyers, representative from our law office. Steve, I see you have folks with you today. Can you introduce them?
Yes, I have myself, Steve Elliott, I have Miranda Ward, Mike Reynolds, and I also today brought our floodplain manager, Mr. Drew Thurman.
Thank you. Our voting procedures require a simple majority of board members present. Today there are 8 members present. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from last month.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The Knox County Board of Zoning Appeals is authorized to grant variances and hear other matters by the Tennessee Code and the Knox County Zoning Ordinance, specifically 6.60 Board of Zoning Appeals. These laws prescribe strict parameters, the meeting of which is required to grant a variance. The burden of proof that an application meets these parameters rests on the applicant. Quoting from Knox County Code of Ordinance 6.60.04, variances, quote, the purpose of the variance is to modify the strict application of the specific requirements of this ordinance in the case of exceptionally irregular, narrow, shallow, or steep lots or other exceptional physical conditions whereby such strict application would result in practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship which would deprive an owner of the reasonable use of their land. The variance shall only be used where necessary to overcome some obstacle which is preventing an owner from using their property as the zoning ordinance intended. For each matter, the clerk will read the request into the record. The chair will then ask if the applicant is present. The chair will then ask if there is opposition or others who wish to speak. You do not have to come forward at this time. Once we determine the speakers for an item, we will call on governmental agencies such as Knox County Codes, Planning, or Engineering to make statements regarding the facts pertinent to the property and background of the request. Board members may ask questions of the governmental agencies once they have made their statements. The chair will then call on the applicant to come forward, state their name and address for the record, and present their evidence and reasoning supporting the granting of a variance. If there is no opposition, the applicant has 10 minutes to present their case. If there is opposition, the applicant and opposition each have up to 15 minutes. After the applicant's presentation, the board members may ask questions of the applicant. The chair will then call on opposition or other parties who have up to 15 minutes to speak. This 15 minutes applies to all parties, so if there are multiple parties who wish to speak, please determine how you're going to divide your time beforehand. After the opponents present their opposition, the board members may ask questions of the opponents. Finally, there will be a discussion of the case by the board, during which time the board members may ask further questions of parties that have already testified. The board will then make any determination it deems necessary. Our bylaws allow an applicant at the initial hearing of the matter to request a deferral of 30 or 60 days without prejudice. In the event of a deferral of an application or failure to appear, any opponent may be heard on the record at a meeting where the application they oppose appears on the agenda. Mr. Law Director, would you please swear in anybody speaking today?
All right, if you're here to speak to this board on any item on the agenda, for or against, please stand and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm testimony you're about to give be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. And be seated, please.
Are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes today.
Thank you. We will start with item 5A. I'm sorry, 4A.
4A is a request of Reginald Bell, for waiver of periphery boundary from 35 feet to 15 feet and waiver of front yard setback from 20 feet to 16 feet, located at 9315 Sway Branch Lane, parcel ID 144NG006, property zone PR in the 4th Commission District.
Is the applicant present? Is there any opposition to this? Any statements from codes or engineering?
We have none.
If you could, please state your name and address. You will have to push the little button that looks like a person. And
Reginald Bell,
And give us your address.
1348 Pale Moss Way, Knoxville.
Pursuant to Knox County Code 6.60.04, what evidence do you present that supports your application for a variance?
Irregular lot.
I think this is the second time
Yes,
we've seen this.
yes,
And I believe the last time you were here, you committed to shifting or rotating your house
yes.
slightly to
To accommodate, to
to
accommodate. the-
alleviate the front yard,
Yes.
if possible. I didn't see anything in the package this time that showed that you'd revised that. Is there a reason why?
We were gonna go with the same configuration of the house because it would still be able to fit inside of the area that's allotted with the 15-foot periphery, I think, and the 16-foot front setback.
Well, Mr. Bell, I'm really kind of dismayed that you made a commitment to do something before you came back, but you chose not to do it. I'm not sure why, but for
Because
whatever reason.
as you mentioned the last time, it would fit with the 15-foot periphery and the 16-foot front yard. That's what you said, and you said if I needed more room, I would be able to shift it if possible. So I went with your recommendation.
Right, I think we both agreed that if you rotated it slightly counterclockwise, it would fit better on the front
Yes,
yard.
I understand.
And
but-
you would still have an issue with the periphery setback, but it would alleviate part of the front yard setback issue. But you chose not to rotate it, and I'm just a little,
If you recall, your initial comment was you didn't see why I needed more of a setback relief than because remember I requested a 5-foot and a 10-foot. And you said that the 15 and the 16 will be ample enough in order for the house to be built on that lot. That was your original comment. But then later on, as we spoke, you said if I turned it, I could have more room in order to build the house that we're trying to build.
yes, and
So
you-
I chose to go with your first recommendation.
very well. Mr. Williams?
Yes, good afternoon. This is in my district. Have you considered either a smaller footprint to fit within the required area without getting the appeals?
I mean, we've already generated the plans. So, I mean, that is definitely something we can take into consideration. But from what we have here, we're able to fit with the 15-foot periphery and the 16-foot setback. It'll be tight, but we'll still be able to fit it in there.
My concerns are digging into that hill, which has occurred a couple lots to the right of it, which is causing some issues for the structures above it.
I understand, and I do recognize your concern, but we're talking about lot 36.
I understand that, but the same situation is.
May occur,
It may, that's right.
but it may not also.
Those are my concerns.
I understand, duly noted.
Does anybody else have any questions or concerns?
Yeah, I have a question for codes. If the peripheral setback went away, what would be the rear yard setback requirement?
15 feet.
Okay.
So I guess, Mr. Bell, a question I have is if the rear peripheral setback is waived so that you could have the 15 feet from the rear, could you build this exact same house? Could it be rotated so that you did not have to have a waiver on the front yard setback? So could you rotate it 4 feet back further and still maintain the side yard and 15-foot rear setback?
Not to attain the entire 4 feet. From what my engineer has told me, we would gain a few, but we wouldn't be able to accommodate the entire front setback that's required.
But could you reconfigure the size and/or shape of the house and still meet your setback requirements? And I guess my question is this, Mr. Bell, have you done everything possible to avoid having to get a variance on the setbacks?
Yes, I have my civil engineer. I mean, if I would have known, I would have had him present. But we've went through every scenario and changing the footprint of the house. Most of those houses are in that same square footage area of size.
My question is, you're planning on building a little over 2,400 square foot home,
Yes.
and could you not build a home that's a little bit smaller square footage?
Yes, I can, but I would have to go back and redo my plans that we've already had prepared.
So that tells me you haven't done everything you can to avoid asking for a variance.
Because the owner,
Let me
the
be
owner
clear, let me
wants-
be clear on this one point, and this needs to be, I guess, expressed for everyone. Asking for a variance should be the absolute option of last resort. After you've done everything possible to avoid asking for a variance, then you come here asking for a variance. I don't see evidence of that here.
So basically, you're saying I need to build a smaller house, even though that's not what the plans or what my client wishes. So he'll have to build a smaller house in order for you guys to permit a BZA for him. With the
Have you
variance.
explained to your client the requirements for a variance and what, I mean, is your client aware
Yes.
of everything and that
Yes.
asking for a variance should be the last resort?
Yes, yes.
Any other comments? Mr. Williams?
My thoughts are the same. And without seeing any changes made to it, I'm going to vote to deny the appeal of the waiver of the periphery boundary from 35 feet to 15 feet, the waiver from front yard setback from 20 feet to 16 feet.
Second.
I'll make an alternative substitute motion.
Okay?
I'd like to make a substitute motion to approve the peripheral setback to 15 feet, because as we have discussed in the past, the peripheral setback is something that will go away when the UDO is approved, and in this case, it's not necessarily applicable unless, Ashley, you think doing so would jeopardize that slope in the back.
That is my concern, is digging into that hill.
Then I will withdraw my substitute motion. We have a motion on the floor to deny the application. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposition? 1 no, 7 yeas. So the application is denied.
Thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Repass. 4B.
4B is a deferred request of Kenneth Wires. It's for waiver of periphery boundary from 15 feet to 9 feet. The property is located at 331 Granville Connor Road. Parcel ID is 056 EB 01003. Property zone PR in the 7th Commission District.
Are you the applicant?
I am.
Is there any opposition to this? Excuse me. Anything from codes?
We don't have anything.
If you could give us your name and address for the record, please.
It's Kenneth Wires, and it's 331 Granville Connor Road, Powell, Tennessee.
Okay, pursuant to code 6.60.04, can you give us the evidence to present to justify your request?
So during the last meeting, right, you said that it needed to be placed in the backyard. When I was told that I was going to put a therapy pool back there, you wanted evidence. So I've provided that evidence of what the backyard is going to look like with all the setbacks. So even if I was to put a shed in there in the backyard, it would still be within that variance. So the second option is to put it behind the house where the setback would be also incurred, but it would be a 9-foot setback.
Steve, I have a question for you. The
Yes.
15-foot peripheral setback was reduced from 35 to 15 by Planning Commission sometime in the past, is that correct?
That's correct. And that's the minimum they can go down to.
Right. But as we have seen, now that there is development, currently there's no peripheral shown on the zoning maps. So if this was done today, there wouldn't be a peripheral setback on that side of the house.
Correct. The periphery boundary follows the zoning boundary. I think in the past, it was interpreted when two separate parcels were zoned individually that the periphery applied to that zone. But as they're done, today we interpret it as though when it's a unified development, we don't apply it to that interior lot line. So if this came in today, that 15-foot periphery would not be applied along that interior lot line.
Okay, without the 15 feet, what would be the minimum setback requirement?
It would be a 5-foot rear yard setback
Okay.
and side yard.
So if I read this drawing correctly, without the 15-foot setback, which would not exist today if this was done today, there would not be need for a variance. Am I reading that correctly?
That's correct. That's right.
Okay. Ms. Garrett,
Mr. Waters, I want to thank you for bringing that for us. It was exactly what we asked for. I appreciate that. And I do also want to thank you for your service. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion. Since this would not have existed if it came in today, it wouldn't be before us. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve the waiver of the periphery boundary setback from 15 feet to 9 feet.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? You have your waiver, or your variance, excuse me.
Thanks.
Yes, please. This would be 5A.
5A is a request of Glenn Grice for waiver of lot intensity from 2.15 acres to 1.65 acre for 2 existing detached single-family dwellings. The property is located at 325 East Brushy Valley Drive, parcel ID 036-09904, property zone AG in the 7th Commission District.
Is the applicant here? Is there any opposition to this? Anything from codes?
Well, just this is another example of the landowner has enough property to build the 3 homes, but they have to subdivide, and when they subdivide, they put in an access easement that takes away from the lot area. So the 3 acres is still there, but by definition of the subregs, the lot area backs out of the, or the access easement area backs out of the lot area.
And just so I'm clear, the access easement would reduce the lot area for the lot that has the existing 2 houses on it already. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. If you could come down now and give us your name and the address for the record.
My name's Glenn Grice. What else do you want?
Address.
Address 325 East Brushy Valley Drive, Powell, Tennessee, 37849.
Bad when the chairman doesn't do his phone.
That's right.
So if you could give us what evidence you have to support your request.
Yes, sir. I've got plenty of land there it's just a technical issue as far as the lot size goes. So the 3.3 acres is a extraordinarily deep, narrow, linear, and the layout creates a typical physical geometry that has no other alternative than to configure it this particular way. And it's considered a flag lot, that rear lot back there. So this strip, this flag strip, or the pole they call it, in the codes, I guess, but that's almost a half an acre that y'all taking away from me, just to put a 25-foot easement up through there. So I'm getting penalized because I need a driveway to get back to my back lot, and, to build a house back there down in the future sometime. I'm just wanting to divide it off, put an acre back there, and build on it. I mean, eventually. So all I'm asking for is 25. Nothing's changing as far as the layout, the land, everything's just still spread out the way it is. I already got 2 houses on the 2 acres right now. I'll just have a driveway, which I already have there anyway. So it's not going to affect anything really, as far as what's already out there. And except, eventually I'll put a house back there, maybe on that 1 acre. I don't know for sure I'll do that or not. But I just want to be able to get it separated out, so if I ever want to, So that's basically all I've got, man. I'm just a layman. I'm not, a lawyer, so that's the best I can do for you. So hopefully you guys will work with me and let me get some things done out there.
So, just so I understand, this easement that you have to grant for the driveway,
Yes, sir.
you're still going to own that property?
Yes, sir, I am.
So you'll own it and pay taxes on it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It'll still, both properties will be mine eventually. My son will probably build something back there, but, that could be years down the road. I don't know when.
So, Ms. Garrett, you want to?
I think this is pretty straightforward. It's going, and from codes, I believe this is also going to be addressed once the UDO passes. And I see him nodding over there. So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve the waiver of the lot intensity from 2.15 acres to 1.65 acres for the two existing detached single-family dwellings due to the flag lot and the easement.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? You have your variance.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
y'all. Appreciate your time.
5B. I'm sorry?
Is there anything else I need to?
I don't know. I don't know what the process is after you leave the lectern, not to be honest with you.
Your surveyor will note the plat that this variance was granted and then submit the plat to planning, and and then you can record.
Five B is a request of Caitlin Ead for waiver to allow accessory structures to be placed in the floodplain. The property is located at 8545 Creek Valley Lane, parcel ID 077ND031. The property zone AG and F in the 6th Commission District.
Is the applicant present? Is there any opposition to this? Anything from codes?
Yes, I brought Drew Thurman, our floodplain manager, today to talk a little bit about it. I don't know if you want to let the property owner go first and then let Drew talk, or I don't know what the rules of order here you would want to follow.
Let's hear from the applicant, and if there are any questions that need to be clarified, then we might ask Mr. Drew to help us.
Okay, and as we talked about at the lunch, I think you should consider these. There's two structures. There's one that's in the floodway, one that's outside the floodway. So I think you should consider this as two separate items. If you were to choose to approve one and deny the other, or if you're going to deny both, I guess you can hear them both as one.
I have no problem looking at them as separate structures. I do need to understand if one or both are below the base flood elevation, but we can get into that when we get into the details.
I have Drew, he's the expert on it, so we can talk about that when you get to him.
Okay. If you could, please give us your name and address for the record.
Sure. I'm Caitlin Ead, and I'm at 8545 Creek Valley Lane.
And give us your, what evidence you have to support
Sure.
your request.
So we have a property my husband and I purchased. It's 3.6 acres. It's like a long, narrow rectangle, for lack of a better term. It's in a rural area of Carnes. Am I allowed to give you pictures? Can I? Am I allowed? So the entirety of our property is considered flood zone because at the back of it by the tree line is Beaver Creek. As you can see, we have a 10 by 10 chicken coop and a 12 by 24 shed on our property. I do believe the shed is what's being considered in the floodway itself right now. To be clear, we will move that north of the floodway, but we don't want to have to move it twice. So we've waited until after this meeting to figure out what our best plan is. We purchased the property to raise our family on and to have a small hobby farm. All of our activities on the land, we've confirmed with the county, the activities themselves are allowed within the restrictions. We have a garden, we've planted an orchard, and we have a small flock of chickens. We can't have the chickens without the chicken coop. And the shed is a small structure that just houses our mower and other tools and supplies needed to maintain the land. We've taken steps to make them as, I guess, flood resistant as possible. They're all placed on blocks. There's no permanent foundations, fill, or grading. So the placement of both structures would allow floodwaters to pass freely beneath and around the structures and avoid any obstruction of flood conveyance or flood storage capacity. They're all relatively lightweight. They're non-habitable. We have no utilities in either of the structures. Both structures also have doors and windows on 3 or 4 sides of them that in the event of a flood can be opened to allow waterways to flow through them. We've been working with the county. We feel like we've exhausted all of our options, which is why we're here requesting the variance today, to allow us to use the property we own without them would provide an undue hardship. But we are aware of the risks to the county based on the flood zone, so we have offered to sign an assumption of liability in the event of a flood if there was any damages done because of these structures.
I see. I think I noted one error in your opening remarks. Your entire piece of property is not in the floodway. Your house is not.
The maps haven't been updated to reflect that. So like we pay flood insurance for our entire property because the maps still recognize it as a flood zone.
Okay.
I think, Mr. Chairman, Drew can talk about that also, but there was fill placed on the property to build the house, and the developer didn't update the flood map. So I'm gonna let Drew talk about it. He knows more about it than I do.
That's fine. I think I understand the distinction. Mamie said you've done everything to deal with the issue. I see email traffic back and forth between you and Mr. Thurman. A number of things, engineering study on an elevation certificate, a variety of other things. I don't see any evidence that any of that was done. I realize that it's a lengthy process, but it is one of the things that you could do.
I'm sorry, what do you mean by getting a survey? To show that it is flood zone or to show that it's not a flood zone anymore?
Pursue a letter of map revision to determine whether portions of the property are in a special flood hazard area. A no-rise analysis that would demonstrate through engineering that it would not increase the base flood elevations or adversely affect that floodway. I mean, you say it won't, but
Sure. Well, to be honest, the path we've pursued is one that we're within the realm of reality as single-family homeowners. I understand that we're not a big developer with deep pockets, so I guess the no-rise study and the map revision, my understanding is those were both lengthy but very expensive processes that didn't necessarily change the elevation outcome. So we felt like the variance request was our most realistic pathway forward to be able to use the property.
whose is this? Mr. Elliott. You think it's time that we quiz Mr. Drew? Mr. Drew, if you could, or actually, that's your first name, sorry. Mr. Thurman, if you could, have you been sworn in?
I stood up and swore, yes.
There's confusion in my mind, at least, on, we have three different, if I understand it, we have three different elevations that we have to deal with. The FEMA base flood elevation, the state requirement, which I believe we heard was a foot above the 100-year flood elevation, or maybe that's not correct. And we have the county requirements, which is a foot above the 500-year flood. Am I correct in that?
Correct. I'll go ahead and get my name on the record. Drew Thurman, 205 West Baxter, Knox County, Engineering Public Works Floodplain Manager. Yeah, I would say that it's not just elevation, there's also boundary, right? So the flood map is a boundary, and you're either in it or you're not, even if it's out of date. And elevation is used to determine the flood map, but and obviously this property had changed in elevation since the flood map was made. They, when they subdivided it and built a neighborhood, they brought in fill and raised some things up to an elevation, and that's where the house sits, right? Is they raised everything up to an elevation where you could build. The developer did not pursue a change in the map. So we think that if they did change the map, it would go, the boundary of the floodplain would change. But it would probably only change to the area where they actually brought in fill, where they were allowed to. They brought in fill up to the no-fill line, which is a regulatory boundary adopted by the county. And so, yes, if they did pursue a map change or an amendment, it would probably only move that boundary to be below what the high ground is. And if you were to look at I think I included some pictures in the analysis for the house, there are aspects of the lot that are high and there's aspects that are low. So it's everything below that embankment would be in the no fill, is beyond the no fill, and we are not allowed to bring in any kind of fill to raise it up. That is in that floodplain, and they would not be able to, currently, without your approval, would not be able to bring in fill to raise any of those structures up to be at the elevation that you would be required to in order to be compliant with the National Flood Insurance Program. So that's what I know. You had brought up, there were some things about what we might have suggested. My first suggestion was to move the structures to the higher ground, because there is ground up closer to the house that would potentially accommodate both of those structures. So that, to me, that was the easiest fix. And there are other property owners in that area that have proposed like a solution. We've worked through what could be compliance and what would not be compliant. And rather than me prescribing what you can or cannot do, it's easier for me to say, if you say I want to do this, what if I moved it here and I raised this up, or I anchored it, or I put in flood vents into the enclosure? That's where I could look at it according to the FEMA, the minimum standards set by FEMA, and I could say, well, this would either meet or not meet it. I guess my last thing would be is I had some concerns that even if both of these structures were granted a variance to be at the federal minimum, I'm still not sure they would be able to exist in their current well, certainly the one in the floodway couldn't exist in its location, but it may not be enough to allow either of them in that lower part, or certainly not without also exempting them from the no-fill requirement. I don't know if that's made it any more clear, but it is a complex situation where those structures are and how low they are compared to what would be the FEMA base flood elevation, which you asked for. I will actually answer your question, sorry. The FEMA base flood, also known as the 100-year, is around 960 feet above sea level, and the coop is sitting at around 952. So FEMA, at the minimum, will require that coop to be raised up to about 960. That's about 8 feet, and it's sitting in a no-fill zone. So you'd still have to bring in 8 feet of fill. An alternative, because it's an enclosure, is potentially being able to install flood vents, and I'd have to research that. And we're committed to work with any type of compliance plan possible. But it would look like a back and forth on what is allowed, what is not allowed, and at what elevation. But I see currently the biggest issue here is the no-fill line, and obviously the floodway, and even if if they were exempted, both structures were exempted from all the local provisions, it'd still be a challenge to find out a path towards compliance that in that lower ground, as opposed to the higher ground, I feel like there would be a lot more path towards compliance.
I'm going to have to ask you to stop right there. So if I understand what I heard, where they're located currently, they both violate the FEMA base flood elevation.
Correct. They're not. Neither are compliant.
Okay, so in their current location, they could not be made compliant with FEMA without fill that can't be placed there. Is that correct?
Not without a variance from you, or at least for the coop. The shed would still have to be moved beyond the floodway, on the other side of the floodway.
So let me ask you, Ms. Caitlin, is there some reason why you cannot move these structures to higher ground?
So the elevated portion of our land that he's talking about is more of like a side yard, which we're trying to avoid because it encroaches on our neighbor's boundary with us. And quite frankly, putting a chicken coop on my side yard seems like a nuisance to the development, considering that we have such a large property that is zoned agriculture as it is.
I guess a follow-up question for you, Drew. With the chicken coop, let's just speak hypothetically. Could the coop stay where it is, be raised 2, 3, let's say even 5 feet with like a block foundation? Would that meet? Does it have to be fill?
So each of these, I have to kind of go deep into the code, in the Code of Federal Regulations, and try to see what specific thing applies. But my first thought on the coop is that it is, as long as it's got walls on 3 sides, it's an enclosure. That's what FEMA considers an enclosure. And so it would have to have, potentially, if they did not want to raise it and they wanted to leave it where it was, it would potentially have to have flood vents installed that would allow the water to actually pass through. And it also would need to be anchored, because it's not just about water going underneath it. It's also that it doesn't get picked up with floodwaters and drift down and hit someone or hit somebody else's property, because this is a public safety issue. If something, you want everything in the floodplain to stay in place and not collapse and not turn into debris. So I do think there is some path of, without raising it in elevation, there could be some type of flood vent that could be incorporated into both structures at that, on the lower ground, assuming I can find the right Code of Federal Regulation that would not require them to elevate, but it would probably require some type of serious anchoring, as well as a certain dimension of open flood venting that you would install into the enclosure.
So I'm hearing there's a pathway to build within the floodplain, but it's probably not the pathway one would take for a chicken coop.
What?
Well, if I could just add, the venting, while potentially we could have it added to the shed, just the reality of is we couldn't have lower venting on the chicken coop, because then it would open the entire chicken coop up to predators, and then, to be honest, we should just leave the chicken coop open. But there are opposing side doors, top to bottom, that are the entire length of the chicken coop that can be opened in the event of rising water, that would serve the same purpose as those flood vents. And it is one of the reasons that, I mean, my husband's here with me today, we have offered to the county to sign a full assumption of liability. We understand what the risk is. We do understand what the county's perspective is on if there is a 100-year flood and these structures were to move, then there is a potential for both public safety and damages and things like that. We are committed to taking on that assumption of liability to remove it from the county. As you can kind of see from the pictures, both sides of our lots are also very rural. There's not any development. They're all flood zones, so there never will be development back there in terms of residential use and houses. But the variance just seems like it is our only path forward in being able to use our property with, like you said, we can't bring in the dirt because it's a no-fill zone to begin with. But even if we keep having that line back, it's just not realistic. It would provide a hardship for us that would no longer make us able to afford the property. We are aware that Knox County has issued variances for flood-zoned properties like ours. In the past, there's a property near us that is probably a quarter of our size. Their structures are literally feet from the floodway, and they've been given variances to build 3 separate individual structures on their lot. So I guess we're looking at that, kind of saying, hey, this is nothing like that. We're not looking to build a house. We're not looking to put utilities back there. We're really just looking to maintain the bare minimum we need to kind of maintain the yard and the land as it is so that it doesn't become unruly and inhabitable.
I will make this observation. I'm not sure that you're 100% aware of what liability you might be exposed to as a result of building this where you want to build it.
We've talked to other homeowners that have taken on that same liability assumption for their properties with structures, which is how we didn't realize that was a potential option.
I can't talk to what they assumed, but I can tell you, from my experience as a civil engineer, one of the biggest reasons that floodways flood is debris being caught under bridges and culverts, which impede the flow of water, okay? It happened years ago on First Creek up in Fountain City, and it was fixed, but if your chicken coop goes zooming downstream on Beaver Creek, there's nothing to say that it won't get stuck in a culvert somewhere or under a bridge and cause a lot of flooding in other people's homes. And I am almost positive you're not ready to take on the liability for that. I'm not sure that there's any way you can sign away that liability. So I don't think that's an issue. What I would suggest is that you engage an engineer, somebody with hydraulic engineering background, look at the issue, maybe a hydrologist, I'm not sure, but get with Drew and figure out the best way to deal with the issue other than just saying we're going to build in the floodway and that's it, because we cannot approve anything that violates the FEMA requirements. We can't give you relief on that.
So can I ask how the other property was given a variance?
I can't speak to other properties, ma'am.
I know, but I'm trying to understand. We've been working with the county for 9 months. We're super open to suggestions, ideas, but we have this piece of property that we're being told our hands are tied, you can't use it. And we're sitting here saying there's a property around the corner from us. I sat in a meeting with Steve and Drew and was told the same thing you guys are saying, was told a variance is impossible. And I gave them an address and I said, well, can you explain to me how this property got approved? Because maybe it's a pathway forward for us. And the answer I got was, oh, well, they were given a variance. They have a home, a detached garage, and in the last 6 months, a very large enclosed barn dominium style property, all sitting right on Oak Ridge Highway. Their backyard is feet from Beaver Creek. We're sitting here, our structures, I understand the shed is currently in the floodway. We will move it out of the floodway. We just don't want to pay to have it moved multiple times until we are able to resolve it. But we have multiple acres between our structures and the actual waterway. And I'm sitting here being told there's absolutely nothing we can do about it. But I'm seeing it other properties within Knox County are getting approval.
Again, I would strongly suggest that you get with an engineer and figure out what can be done to make anchoring, venting, elevating, whatever has to be done so that you can use your buildings as you intend. But right now, you're just asking us to say they're okay where they are.
So if we were to go through that process and we were to anchor them and things like that, so those are more permanent decisions we haven't done because we didn't want to anchor them to the ground to come here today and find out we have to move them. So if we were to anchor them and things like that in accordance with what flood water management is suggesting, would that be enough for us to get approval to keep them on the field?
I won't say yes or no, but I will say that when Drew, I keep saying Mr. Drew, and I should.
Drew Thurman.
Mr. Thurman. If Mr. Thurman came back to this group and said they've done everything that we've required them to do, the engineering has been done, the work has been done, and I find it acceptable under the floodplain management requirements, then I'm reasonably sure that this board would say, okay, if there's a variance required in order to make it happen, we would look favorably on that. But right now, you haven't done anything that Mr. Thurman said you need to do. So,
Paul, could they not elevate it
Yeah.
on poles like a boat dock?
On stilts.
Nothing else? Bring that level of the hen house up and nothing more than a walkway up to it.
I'm sorry, who's speaking? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was somebody in the audience. Go ahead.
No, you drive them 4 poles, build them a deck, elevate it. You got a ramp going into an old hen house and a door on it. It keeps the fox, possums and everything out from eating their chicken. They've got it elevated above, it's affixed.
I agree with you, Craig. I've seen a lot of structures in flood areas that are built on stilts, if for lack of a better word.
That's what it is.
There is nothing in the world that says you can't do that, other than the fact that maybe you don't want to.
I'm happy to do that for the chicken coop. I think the chicken coop is a lot easier to kind of work around. We have a lot more options in terms of the structure of a chicken coop. The shed is the bigger concern. I can't elevate the shed 20 feet and then drive a mower off of it.
No, you could on a ramp, but again, I won't argue that. There are solutions. They may not be.
Well, so I guess my concern is that in our meetings, I was told that all of these things are things we could do but wouldn't be enough. So my concern is that if we go back and we sit and we do the anchoring and we have them on blocks and we have the flood vents in the shed, we're still not going to be at the minimum elevation. There's no plausible way that we can get that shed to the minimum elevation, which means we would need the variance regardless. So I just want to understand, is it that if I go and I do the anchoring and I make sure that the flood water can pass through, then the elevation is no longer a requirement that would be an automatic no? I'm just confused by if that is or not a deal breaker for a variance.
I'd like to make one clarification. This is Drew Thurman speaking. One of the things I think does speak to what she's just said is that we interpret the no-fill line as anything beyond that cannot go there without this no-rise study, which could be expensive. And so that prevents anything pretty much being considered for the low ground. So that is where, without that no-rise study from an engineer, they would have to have a variance from this body to have anything in the low ground. Now, once you, and that would be the same for elevating it using fill in that area. But the relocation would be something that we could talk about. And I would say we would never ask them to make changes and then move the needle. We would probably entertain a dialogue of what would be the closest thing to compliance, and then if a variance was needed, we would advise them to seek a variance for just what they would need. But we would treat that as a negotiation of how we get to compliance, and then we would, we would not ask them to make any of these changes without some path towards compliance.
Miranda, can you bring up Drew's package of information? Oh, that's it right there, that slide. Can you bring it down just a tad? No, the other way. Thank you. So, is that the right one? Yeah, it is. So let me understand. Hopefully I can understand. both of those structures were placed between the no-fill line and the house, that would be acceptable. If they were raised to an elevation higher than what?
So if they're placed north above the no-fill line, between, somewhere between the red line and the house, then it would be a matter of elevation and/or flood venting. But
Okay,
anything
let's just-
south of the red line would require relief.
Let's talk about elevation right now, north of the line. What elevation gets them beyond the point where they need a variance? I want to say it's 860, but it might be 863 or 4, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't.
While he's looking at that, I do want to say one thing, and while we can't address how other houses got variances, I do want to bring up, and I don't think it's been mentioned yet, that if this body does grant a variance on that, and this area is audited by FEMA, then every house that has flood insurance would lose the discount that every house is currently getting in the cost of their insurance.
It's
Because of our
potential.
structures.
It's potential.
It's potential. If this body gets audited by FEMA, then that becomes a potential for everybody,
Sure,
not just you all.
sure, I understand.
And if we violate the FEMA elevations, what Ashley was talking about was the county's requirement, which is above the 500-year flood. If we violated the FEMA requirement, which is above the 100-year flood, it's possible we wouldn't get any new flood insurance. Any existing flood insurance might not be renewed. We might lose out on some federal grant money. We might not get any disaster relief funding. And we might lose out on federal mortgage insurance.
But
So
that
you
all
see-
stands already, right, because a variance has been issued in the flood zone.
I'm sorry?
That already is at risk because a variance has been issued for structures in the flood zone. They're actually, the structures are in the floodway of that property. So
Ma'am.
what I'm saying is the risk already, Knox County has already assumed that risk by offering a variance to a different property owner.
Ma'am, I will say this once and hopefully not again. The sins of the past do not change what we have to do today.
That elevation is 963 feet. That's the Knox,
563.
that's the minimum floor elevation for that area.
For the counties.
That would be if anybody was doing anything, we would, for that neighborhood, the plat, when it was permitted, everything had to be built at 963 or higher.
So if the shed and the chicken coop were placed north of the no-fill line and raised to 563 and a half. I'm sorry,
963.
963 and a half, or is it just 963?
That's, the minimum floor elevation is 963.
963.
Yeah.
Then you will not need a variance.
So that's 1 foot higher than the chicken coop is currently, if I took notes correctly. So I think what I'm hearing is you'd have to move the chicken coop slightly north.
Or
Well,
elevate it.
Further north.
So it's interesting, where the chicken coop is higher than other portions. So like, interestingly enough, the shed, while I understand it's in the floodway and we'd move it, the shed is at a higher portion, like a higher elevation than our chicken coop.
It's
Just
about
because
10
of the
feet.
topography of the field. It kind of slants upwards as you go towards our border over there. So we have them placed into what we thought was kind of the highest points.
But
The
they are-
chicken coop, if we elevated, instead of moving it, if we elevated it to that,
No, there's two parts to this. You got to move it above the no-fill line, because my understanding is nothing can be built below the no-fill line. Nothing, okay? It's got to be north of the no-fill line and above 963, or at 963.
Or I
So
think-
those are two conditions in order to not have to have a variance.
So basically, taking the coop and putting it on the other side of the raised garden bed, just a little bit above where that's at, would get it on the other side of the no-fill line.
Sure, just the topography of the land, that would be impossible. It's a slant. Because the developers brought in just enough dirt for them to build the house and not enough for anything else.
Well, I don't intend to solve your engineering problem here today, but your solution is those two things. Move it north of the no-fill line and elevate it to 963.
And just to make sure you're aware, you can defer for 30 days or 60 days as you get this information together and appear,
Like, before it's voted on, is that what that means?
appear
Just
before us again.
Yes, you may ask for a deferral.
Okay, so I guess at this point, I'll ask for a deferral for 60 days while we kind of reassess this information.
Before we address that, could I ask one question? Was this marketed as a mini farm?
So I'll be perfectly honest. It doesn't matter now. We were sold the lot by the developers. We paid a premium for the land behind it. We went back and forth with Smith Built for months talking about what we were able to do on this land. We knew it was a flood zone when we bought it. They explained the no-fill line. They explained you couldn't move any dirt in or out. Past that, we were told there were no restrictions on the land. We bought the land with the intention of putting like a mini schoolhouse in the backyard or an office or something. Obviously that we've since learned we're in violation and we can do nothing on our land. But we were sold this lot of land with a very misleading, if not fraudulent, description of what our restrictions were.
Dang, I just wanted that for the record.
Yeah, so our HOA even built it out so that our lots don't have any restrictions. So we're in a newer development, there's HOA restrictions. Our lot is one of 7 that has land behind it, and all of the HOA restrictions are waived for our land so that we can do with it whatever we want. We paid a premium to Smith Built for that, and then found out after the fact that that was not the case. Hence the need for a variance.
Mr. Elliott, do you want to make a motion to defer?
Can I ask a technical question, since this is very new and we're really kind of walking through this blind? If we were to move it to the northern part, which my understanding is already at that elevation, what are the restrictions that we're then butted up against, like putting this shed and the chicken coop on our property line with our neighbors? Does that then cause we fix one problem to create another?
I would recommend working with Mr. Thurman, obviously, for the elevation and things like that, and maybe with Mr. Elliott or someone in the codes department to see what you can do in regards to periphery boundaries.
It would have to be 25 feet off the property line for the periphery, and as part of the elusive UDO, we are, there will be limited chickens allowed in residential zones. So currently today, they wouldn't be allowed in the PR, but soon they will be.
I assume you mentioned that because the part of the property up near the house is zoned residential, not agricultural.
That's correct. It's on PR, not.
But the lot is, the land itself is agriculture.
No.
So I feel like our hands are a little tied here because we can solve one problem, but we create ourselves another headache. Or we're going to sit on this land that we cannot use correctly, which seems, quite frankly, a little crazy right now.
Steve, how confident are you that the chicken issue will be resolved in the UDO?
Pretty confident. There has been several county commissioners asked.
There's a lot of support for that on county commission.
And we're not enforcing anything with it right now until the UDO passes. So it's been.
What you're hearing here is if you can solve the technical issues on the elevation and location north of the no-fill line, but you have an issue because it's currently not allowed in the the zone.
We
You may
also
need-
don't have 25 feet between our neighbor's property and us to put either of these structures. Maybe
Well,
the chicken
we-
coop, but the shed would not.
We can address that with the variance here
Yes.
for a setback.
Those variances are easier for us to deal with than a variance that might negatively affect untold number of people downstream of your property, okay? I don't know how else to explain it, but that's the reality. And also, we can't do anything that would jeopardize the NFIP requirements. So, you did say you wanted to defer for 60 days to get you a chance to?
Yeah, I'll defer it.
Okay. Mr. Elliott?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to defer for 60 days.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? I will ask this, Steve, I assume there's a clock running on the violation?
We knew that this was going to be challenging for all the property owners, that they're not the only ones, and we did not put a clock on it because we know that
Okay,
there was a lot of questions about
all right. So
how to comply.
the 60 days won't affect it. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? We're deferred for 60 days. Please
Thank
get
you.
with an engineer and with Mr. Thurman and with Steve and work out the best possible solution. Thank you. 5C.
5C is a request of Robert Waller for waiver to allow recreational vehicle to be stored on a vacant lot and waiver to allow the recreational vehicle to be occupied on site. The property is located at 0 Ridgeview Road, parcel ID 021133, property zone agricultural in the 8th Commission District.
Is the applicant here? Is there any opposition? Any statement from codes?
We don't have any at this time.
If you could, please state your name and address for the record.
Kimberly Waller. My address is 2533 Buffett Mill Road, Knoxville, 37917. I'm here to speak on behalf of my elderly parents, and I was told just this morning I needed to provide a letter signed by them that my brother and sister and I could speak on their behalf, and I have that. I think Miranda left a message for me this morning.
If you could, just give it to the clerk and she will.
Bring it up there.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
also have a doctor's statement. Should I give that to the clerk at this time?
Certainly.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I hate to interrupt, but there was an agenda correction, and for the record, this is parcel ID 021134.
Thank you.
This is the current issue, 021164?
134. But there's a typo on the application. It's 133 on the application.
Okay.
And I can approach
Yeah, please.
clerk. Okay.
You already read this one, right? Yeah. Okay. So if you could give us your reasoning for asking for the variance?
Yes. My parents are 87 and 85 years old. My father has lived on this property since he was 6 years old. We're seeking a temporary waiver to allow their grandson, my nephew, to occupy his 28-foot recreational vehicle that is currently parked on 134, that's the correction, right? My parents own also the lot that is labeled 133. This RV is sitting next door to their home on 134. Of course, with my parents' age, of course, anybody their age, their desire is to stay in their home as long as possible. They are facing some medical hardships. I did provide a statement from their primary care physician. So I won't go into that I had written here. That's written better by Dr. Haney than by me. My nephew, their grandson, is self-employed, which allows him to be physically present during many times of the day. He also takes physical care of the property, both lots, 134 and 133. And this includes everything from lawn mowing, trimming, mowing the ditches, cleaning gutters, feeding of the goats that they own, tree trimming. My brother and sister and I live at least 20 to 30-minute drives away and are employed, which makes our response more difficult during crisis, which my parents have experienced. The RV is actually sitting on a portion of my parents' property that formerly had a mobile home parked in the exact same spot until 1971. And because of that, there was already a separate septic tank. The electrical service was installed by a certified electrician and inspected by KUB and signed off on that he is using for the camper. And there was already a pre-existing driveway at that location due to there having been a mobile home in that same spot. My brothers and sisters and I, my family, we lived in that mobile home until 1971 or 2. And since then, my parents have lived in the home next door to where this RV is sitting. I do want to emphasize that the current violation we were informed about was entirely unintentional on our behalf. This arrangement was initiated out of a sense of family safety for my parents and medical necessity. Our family's goal is to ensure the safety of our parents, but however, we also want to adhere to the spirit of county land use policies. But when this was brought up and my father mentioned it to me and my brother and sister, we were absolutely thrilled that my nephew could do this for us, being that we are not right there. So given the combination of the medical hardship, that there is utility infrastructure there that was previously there from another home, and this is a temporary request until we could figure out what options might be if this temporary waiver isn't granted. We would like to request that the waiver for storage and occupancy just be waived at this time to ensure the health of our parents.
You've mentioned a couple of times and also in your application that it's a temporary situation. Do you have any time frame how long you think it might be temporary?
Not really, because, and like I said, honestly, we had no idea we couldn't do this. As I said, in the past, there was a mobile home sitting there next door to my parents' home, and they actually rented it out, and I do not remember what year they had it moved out of there. They rented it, I know they had at least 3 different renters over the years. You all don't remember what year. We can't recall, and I did not ask my father before this meeting if he remembered what year that mobile home was moved from that location. But basically, it did already have a driveway. It has a separate septic system from my parents' septic. And of course, the separate electricity, the separate meter.
Okay, I have a question for Steve that might sound trivial or maybe even in jest, but what's the difference between a mobile home and a recreational vehicle?
A mobile home is actually built to HUD standards, so it's inspected and built to a standard where there's egress, there's electrical standards. A RV camper, they're built to a different standard that is not intended to be habitable year-round or full-time occupancy.
May I ask a question of him?
Certainly.
And that is true for no matter the model year of the recreational vehicle. This is a 2025, I believe.
It's correct, yes. I believe there's some built to FEMA standard that are used for temporary occupancy, but there's none that I'm aware of that are built to the HUD standard or the IRC standard.
So it's essentially the standard of construction, not the configuration, shape, whether it's bolted down or skirted or any of that nature?
Correct, yes, it's the construction standards.
Well, I'll have to tell you, from my own previous experience down on the Vogel site, we had craft living in camper trailers for 2 or 3 years, year-round.
Yeah.
So it is done. I mean, it can be done. I don't know what standards they were built to, but they were on lots with power, sewer, just like what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
I realize that the regulations say a recreational vehicle, and that's what this is classified as. I suppose if I had more of a feeling what the temporary nature might be, it would be helpful. But I'll let Mr. Graves talk about this in some more detail.
Is there anything on the books as far as timelines for temporary waivers that would allow for this to be as it is?
The only thing we currently have is that there was a ordinance passed, like a year and a half ago that would allow you to live in a camper or an RV in association with the construction of a new home. So
Which
if
is
you're
what we
building a
normally see.
home, you could live in a camper beside it until the home was constructed. Those generally expire in 6 months, a year. They expire in a year. So if your home isn't built in a year, you have to renew and you have to have justification for why your home isn't built.
So it sounds like the solution here would be either putting a single-family residential structure on the vacant lot, tying into those resources. And I agree with you, it's perfect confluence of the electrical and the sewer all being there ready to go, and the driveway, it all makes perfect sense. Getting it connected there, or then requesting possibly a waiver to put it on the property that it is on 134. If it was still, you'd still have to have a single-family residential, and then he could stay in the camper for that period of time until that structure was done.
Correct.
That would be the only official thing we do.
Correct.
I certainly sympathize with your situation. I was a caregiver for my grandmother. We pass by that house often. My son plays punch bug with the yellow bug there, so we're very familiar with that. The problem is the precedent it sets. You know, you all have a very reasonable reason to have your nephew there, but if you allow it here, we're going to have to allow it a lot of other places too. And so that's where it becomes a complex issue. So I don't know what the cheapest single-family residential option is for that area, but that sounds about where the best case scenario.
I don't want our law director representative to feel neglected, so I have a legal question. Can variances be sunsetted? If we grant a variance in this case, is there such a thing as a temporary variance?
As we were discussing in the meeting, years ago, the Board of Zoning Appeals, which was made up of very different composition, mostly commissioners, had what they called a medical hardship. They invented it. It was not supported by the zoning code. There was nothing in the code that would allow it. But when they did this, they said that the variance was limited by the medical emergency. So if a variance was granted to help persons in poor health get by day to day, and those persons were to pass away, that would end the reason for the variance. So if you ask me, is there such thing as a temporary variance under our zoning code? No. But that doesn't mean the board hasn't done it in the past. It was just a long time ago. It hasn't been done by this board, certainly not since I came back to the county, to the law director's office. And again, if you look at the reasons for granting a variance, they have to do with topography, use of the land. Medical hardships are just not considered to be grounds for a variance under our zoning code. They're just not. Now, this body can do what it wishes, and if somebody wishes to challenge it, we can hash it out in the courts. But like, as I say, if you were going to consider it, then you could certainly say that the variance would expire upon the expiration of the need for the variance.
Okay, Steve, I assume this came about as a result of a notice of violation?
Yes, I believe we received a complaint from a neighbor.
Okay, if the applicant commits to constructing a single-family dwelling of some kind on this property, could the enforcement of that code violation be deferred for a year while that construction's ongoing? I guess what I'm saying is, could she be shown grace for a year with the commitment to build a permanent structure of some kind, either mobile home or the whatever building they choose to do?
Yes, I think if this body,
I'm trying to avoid setting a precedent that is not consistent with the law by maybe deferring the requirement to a later date, if you follow my meaning.
Is there any reason they couldn't park their recreational vehicle next to the carport?
It's not the parking of the vehicle there, it's the occupancy of the vehicle. That's the issue.
Understand that, but that's just a,
To me, it's a fine, I mean, it's splitting hairs, but it is what it is. I mean, it's what the law, that's what the ordinance says. I'm just asking if it's possible that the violation can be deferred for a year with the intent of building a house.
I'm sure you probably aren't going to want to commit to building a structure right here on the spot, but we could defer, and you could reappear and make that request, and that would buy you a little time to figure out the best course of action. Is there an option for, and I want to say this too, when I drove by, he was out weed eating. I know he's working. I know he's a good boy. Make sure you tell him that for taking care of them like that. Is there any option for him to be in the house? I know young man probably wants his space, but is that an option? Or an expansion of the house, is that an option, a separate room for him to have his own space? Could that, I'm just looking for other options.
My siblings and I were raised in that house with one bathroom and 3 bedrooms, one of the bedrooms has now been eliminated. My nephew just turned 38 years old. Plus he has a dog. And I know my mother would not want that dog in the house.
Sure, yeah.
So
just-
then he's got to get rid of his dog.
Yeah, I
And
just
so-
want to consider all those options. You know, I don't know if there's
Yeah.
room, you know, to build an addition or something like that.
And he
That
has a
would,
girlfriend.
oh, yeah. Yeah, that does cramp your style a little bit, I think.
So,
So, Steve, I guess I never quite got a sense of an answer. Could the enforcement of the violation be deferred for a year if a building permit was pulled or whatever it takes to commit to a building?
I think if they pulled a building permit, they could also pull a temporary use permit. I think the terms of the ordinance, and I would have to go back and read it, I believe it said they had to make progress towards completion of a home. So you just couldn't pull a permit and then say, I'm gonna start it in a year. You'd have to do some sort of work. 6 months. Yeah, you'd have to start construction within 6 months.
Or we'd be right back here again?
Or we'll be right back here again.
Ma'am, are you following all that?
and to begin work within 6 months, that would be either if it were an actual build of a small home or moving in a mobile home?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. And are most mobile homes, you said they had to be HUD standards and all that, or most reputable companies, I'm assuming?
They are. Everyone since, I believe, sometime in the 70s had been built to HUD standards. There's
Okay.
none that's not. They would be like a pre-1970, not built to that standard.
And you would work with them on any potential pitfalls of either, because like I said, if we add another structure to the 134, they're going to have to get a variance for that unless it's after the UDO. Or the vacant lot, any pitfalls that you would see with that option?
None, no. I mean, potentially they could need a waiver of lot intensity variance. I've not looked at it from that perspective. And I actually think if they, I think we could talk about it with them. I think there's some options there. I don't want to go on record of saying something that maybe I'm wrong about because I've not researched it enough.
Well, my question is, if he wanted to move a small mobile home in the same location, though, that property is what, 1.34 acres? If it were to go where his RV is
camper
parked
is.
right now?
It would require a variance,
Because a mobile home should have how much property?
1 per acre.
Okay.
Yeah, 1 acre per dwelling in the zone.
So the property my parents own next to that, is that the 133, is an acre, I believe.
Yes, ma'am. You could place a mobile home on that piece of property without a variance,
Okay.
assuming you can get sewer and whatever, utilities.
I mean, it should be close. I mean, the septic and the electric are right on the line pretty much, right?
Right.
So that's an option.
Okay.
So
If you're amenable, I would at least suggest a deferral for 60 days to let you hash out your options. And that buys you 2 months to figure out the best course for you guys, and then you can come back.
And I think as part of the motion, you should ask us to defer enforcement for that 60-day period.
Okay.
I have a question. So if it's deferred for 60 days and not enforced for 60 days, when we come back in 60 days, are you saying we'd have to have a plan saying, okay, he's going to stay there, but within the next year, he's going to build, and we need to have the plan for the build?
I think that's one option for you, yes.
Okay.
At least have a building permit pulled by then? Would that be
Or a plan to apply for one.
okay?
yeah,
What do you do if you're moving a mobile home there? Is that a building permit, or is that something?
It is.
It's still a building permit? Okay.
Well, yes, technically, it's a $100 building permit.
Those have to have poured footers or anything to be compliant?
That's, the state does all of that for us. The only thing we look at on them is a porch, and we do a final, so we'll look at setbacks also.
Okay.
Do we do footers? I didn't know we
another potential
Phil-
option would be.
Mr. Graves, are you going to make a comprehensive motion?
I think Mr. Reynolds here maybe had
Yeah,
an idea.
I mean, just to, because the properties combined would be more than 2 acres, if there was an issue with putting a mobile home on the other lot and having septic on this lot, they could combine the 2 lots, and that, they can have 2 units on 2 acres of land. They could still put the mobile home in the location of the, where the RV is now, where the mobile home used to be, and it's all the hookups are in the same spot.
Okay, so you're saying if, so they have a separate deed, I believe,
Yeah.
for the 1 acre property. So you're saying if they,
Yeah, just combine them. It would
And-
take, it would require a surveyor to officially combine the 2 lots together, but that'd be potentially one option, was to combine the 2. That way you could have two structures on one property.
and he could put the new home or mobile home where the RV is now.
Correct.
There would be nothing about how close it is to my parents' house.
Correct. You just have to make sure you meet like the front setback requirement still from the road, which it might already meet that front setback. I'm not sure what did it.
What would that be, the front setback from Ridgeview?
40 feet from the property line.
Okay.
It's behind the house right now, right? Is that correct? No,
It's beside it.
it's beside it, okay.
If there's nothing else, I would like to make a motion that we defer this item, this waiver request for 60 days. And then also add that engineering defer enforcement for that same period until reappearance in September.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
And
Motion
what would
carries.
that date in September be?
Fourth Wednesday in September.
September 23rd.
Okay, thank you.
Five D.
5D is a request of Bailey Lane for waiver of front yard setback from 35 feet to 25 feet. The property is located at 4835 McLeod Road, parcel ID 019-20207, property zone RA in the 7th Commission District.
Is the applicant here? I got tired and left. No applicant. Well, I will make a motion that we defer this for 30 days.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. 5E.
5E is a request of Denise Clark for waiver of periphery boundary from 35 feet to 30 feet. The property is located at 9615 Levens Way, parcel ID 154LA004, property zone PR RN1 in the 4th Commission District.
Is the applicant present? Oh, good. Is there any opposition? Any statement from codes? If you could, please state your name and address for the record.
Denise Clark. The address is 9615 Levens Way in Knoxville, 37922.
And can you give us the evidence for your request?
Yes, we are requesting a variance from the 35-foot peripheral setback requirement to allow for more like a 30-foot setback instead. As you can see from the preliminary site plan, this property is a zero-sum lot, and due to the strict geometry of the land, the 35-foot rear setback allows for no legally permissible building to improve the property. If the zoning ordinance under 5.13.06 is literally applied to this particular lot, there can be no addition to the existing house and only a small deck for outdoor recreation. This is a unique physical hardship resulting from the lot's configuration since its inception. and without the variance, were denied reasonable use of the property for enhancement to both indoor and outdoor living. The proposed footprint does maintain a safe distance from everything that is adjacent in terms of structures, and it does not alter the essential characteristic of our small neighborhood, which is actually just 2 streets. We provided notice to our neighbors of the requested variance with the approximate measurements, and no objections were voiced. There was one question asked, which we answered, and 3 of the neighbors actually provided written support for the variance. I have that with me if anyone wants to see it. And they were aware that the addition for the hearth room would be about 10 feet by 12 feet, and the addition for the adjoining deck would be about 12 by 16 feet. So, in summary, because the literal enforcement of the 35-foot periphery setback makes it impossible for us to make this small addition and replace the deck, we respectfully ask that our variance be approved.
Thank you. Anything from codes?
No, we don't have anything on this one.
Oh, I have a question for codes. Typically, peripheral boundaries are between either an existing subdivision and a vacant piece of property, or between 2 subdivisions. This periphery boundary is between a subdivision and a highway. Can someone speak to me about what the peripheral boundary in this case, what's it protecting?
Well, it could be the public way, you know, it could be aesthetic to the community, but it's not necessarily, obviously, it's not addressing concerns with the development butting up against a separate development like we typically see. I mean, so external boundary of a project like this along a public road would be more of a buffer to the public road itself and the broader community area. Now, this is a little bit more unique than most situations that we see. Obviously, we're usually dealing with more of a typical county road setup. This is, you know, adjacent to a large interstate, but it's directly behind it is, I think, a neighborhood commercial project in the city. So
That neighborhood commercial zone, does that look like it could possibly ever be used to build? It looks like a remnant to me.
it's actually been built on now. It's got medical offices in it, I believe.
In that sliver of property? Go back to the,
the little sliver of property of zoning
Yes.
behind. So that little sliver of zoning is RN1. And I think what's probably happened here is really that RN1 zone that's showing that. So there's a dashed line that's got green on it. I think that's the actual city boundary now. And what happened, I think, is that the city updated its boundary line at some point in time, but it doesn't automatically update with their zoning maps. So I think what's happened here is the zoning map was drawn to what the city boundary line used to be shown as. The city corrected a boundary line. Map doesn't just automatically follow it. So really the PR zone is probably a little bit further back than where it really is shown on the plan or on this zoning map. It probably goes back to that green line.
If I think I heard what you said, that RN zone may not exist anymore on the southern side of the green line.
Yeah, assuming that the city recently updated that zoning or their boundary line in GIS, which would make sense.
I'm sorry, Mr. Williams.
Yes, number one, thank you for your patience for today.
Oh, sure.
Considering, and this is in my district, considering the location of it and the surrounding areas, I would make a motion to approve the waiver of periphery setback from 35 feet to 30 feet.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? You have your variance.
Thank you so much.
Is there any public comment that anyone wants to make today?
Yes.
You're not the public.
Oh, not public.
No, go ahead. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
As we discussed at the lunch today, EPW would ask the board to consider in the CA zone, and I believe the CB zone also has the same issue. About a year and a half ago, we added multifamily and attached units to both of those commercial zones. In doing so, we applied the side yard setbacks from the RB zone to both of these commercial zones. And when you go to the RB zone, it says you have an 8-foot side yard setback for a 1-story structure, 12 foot for a 2-story structure. Therefore, it's impossible to build an attached house and meet those setbacks. So the side yard setback should have been to include 0 side yard setback when the units are attached. So as the zoning administrator, I would ask you guys to take that up and consider that. And I think we talked about we'll need to put it on as an agenda item for next month and then vote on that. Since there was an error in the plan, that we would allow 0 side yard setbacks when attached housing on individual lots are built. Mike, does that sum it up? I'm sorry, I'm not as eloquent speaking.
Yeah, that's essentially it. It would be that the intent was to have a 0-foot setback where houses are attached along that property line. So actually, it'd be like under the structures, essentially.
Okay, I will make a motion that we authorize engineering and codes to come back in 30 days with language that they would like to see used to correct this issue. And we will discuss it at that meeting and vote on it then. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
All those in favor, please say aye. We're adjourned.